Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've done videos before talking about variant comics, and variant comics is one of those things that, by and large, it's like junk food. I think it's something that, some people enjoy and it can be fun, and you get a cover that you like and you get something unusual and cool, and that's great. But it's not necessarily good for you. And variant covers for the comic book industry has not been particularly good for it. Now, if you've been following along with those numbers videos, you see a common trend where the number one issues spike up abnormally high and then they plummet to an issue 2 and an issue 3. This has become so common in the industry that everybody just assumes this is the case, but one of the biggest driving factors are variants. You've got comics like the Eternals that are launching with dozens of variant covers, and you have stores that then have to kind of keep up and try and figure out which ones to order and try and manage this for customers. And it sets up a situation where nobody really wins. And the crazy part about it is, by and large, customers, fans, people who like comic art, would be far better served by just pooling their money and buying some original art from a creator. There's lots of creators out there that can give you there's just tons of work that you can buy. You can buy commissions and get something really unique for yourself. I think it's interesting to publish a comic that has one variant cover that's just blank with the intention that collectors and big time fans can go and get their favorite artist to draw their own cover. I think that's there's nothing wrong with that. And a couple variants are not bad. It's when the variants spiral into 5, 6, 20 more comics that it becomes a problem. Now, I've heard the basically the pushback saying, variants are a victimless crime. That, they come out, you don't have to order them, you can just ignore them. And that is true if you're a customer. But it does have a downstream effect that hurts everyone. When comics bounce around in the numbers so severely that you have a number one issue that's selling over 100,000 copies and then it plummets down to 25,000 for issue 2, that's not healthy. That doesn't provide stability. It doesn't give anyone, the retailer, the publisher, any sense of what's actually going on with this book. It creates a false ceiling. And in many cases, it encourages the publisher to try and do more stunts like that to kind of eke out more cash. And while they're worrying about how to maximize the profits on this book, they're not worried about things like a stable creative team, a good story, a good plot, or sustainability. They're just looking, how many books can I fictionally push over 100,000 copies so I can make my number this month or this quarter? And it changes what comics are all about. If you're a customer, it will impact you sooner or later. It's one of those cases where, it may seem like I can just pick and choose whatever I want, but there have been a lot of comics that have disappeared, that comics that you've enjoyed the run on, that you'd like to collect more copies of, but you can't because those comics get canceled. One of the reasons they get canceled is for this reason. It's because these numbers are so out of control and so strange that it creates weird bubbles in the comic industry. The other problem is it puts the emphasis on collecting and sales on the wrong things. Rather than collecting a comic or a run, people are collecting the cover. And there's incentive programs that the publishers do that cause even more damage. The incentive program of, if you want this variant cover, you're going to have to order extras of this other comic over here. And we've seen this done with Captain Marvel, we've seen it done with Miss Marvel, we've seen it done with Guardians of the Galaxy, we've seen it done with all kinds of books where you have to order additional copies of a title in order to qualify for the variant cover. Now, these comics don't naturally sell. The idea here that the publisher will use to excuse it is, hey, with more comics going into the shop than they would have normally ordered, it's going to encourage that shop to push this comic on new readers, and the new readers will get hooked on it and they'll keep reading. The problem is, we've seen, again, if you've been following the numbers videos I've been posting, it never works out that way. When you see these incentive programs and you look at the months following, the numbers drop right back down. You don't see a slow climb. There really isn't any case study that says that this program actually works. All that happens is you get a lot of comics flooding into the shop that they can't sell, which then wind up in dollar bins and other places. And I have this theory that when comics land in the dollar bin, or when a customer comes in, they look at the shelf and they see a huge stack of comics there, the message they're getting is, nobody must want this comic. Even if it's a good comic, seeing giant stacks there does not push anyone to be motivated to buy it. Many comic shops, when they do have larger stacks of comics, they won't put them all out on the shelf. This is a very simple seller technique where you want to encourage a feeling of demand. If you've got huge piles of comics, people are going to come in, they're not going to feel any urgency to buy that comic. Maybe in the back of their head, they're going to think nobody must want this, or maybe they'll think I might want this later, but I'm in no motivation, no hurry to go buy it because there's plenty of copies. I can always pick it up next week. The problem is if somebody leaves a store thinking, maybe I'll pick it up next week, looks like there's plenty here, they typically don't come back. They don't come back and buy it again. They just move on with their life. Time does not make the heart grow fonder. It just makes the heart forget. That's what happens to a lot of these books. So if you've ever gone into a comic shop and you've seen their dollar bin, or you've seen these bundles that they put together, and you see a lot of the same comic there, in many cases, it's because of an incentive program that was used to sell variants. And none of this is healthy. None of this is healthy for comics or titles or sales. Trying to kind of fictionalize what's selling and what isn't, it doesn't lead to any kind of good business. Now, again, there are people who love variants. There are people who want to buy the special cover from the artist they really love, and I get that. I completely and absolutely get it. I just think there's a healthier, possibly better way to go do it, where you can get a comic, you can then have a much better program sent off, where artists can either send you a print or maybe draw in there for you. I mean, if you're a comic book artist and you set up a little website or something for yourself where somebody sends you the blank cover comic in, and you, in 20 minutes or less, scribble out a very quick sketch of something that is the character of the comic or whatever it happens to be, basically make a variant cover on demand, you can pull in hundreds of dollars off that. And many fans will feel more motivated to buy it. Arguably, that's a more valuable collector comic because it's one of a kind. It's something unique for you. That process does exist. It's expensive. It's probably more expensive than a $20 variant cover, but I would argue it's a lot more healthy for the industry and for the creators than having dozens and dozens of variant covers. Again, I'm not knocking a system where a comic comes out with 2 covers or 3 covers. I think there's a model that I've seen where there's a cover A, a cover B, and a blank cover. I mean, that's inherently fine. What I'm really complaining about is when you get in the realm of 30 to 40 to 50 variant covers. And what's also sad about this is there's some artists who are doing these variant covers who are really great artists that you'd love to see actually doing interiors of the book. And you just have to wonder, at least from a sales perspective, if they got Art Adams or J. Scott Campbell and they ponied up the cash to have each one do one original graphic novel story a year, would that be better for business rather than kind of having them churn out variant covers where they're able to sell some incentive programs, they're able to sell some other comics there, but overall it creates a negative perception for the industry. I don't know. And then just at a level, I just think there's something weird and wrong about taking the same content and then just slapping a new cover on it and going over and over and over and over doing this. I don't think that that's a healthy thing to do. I don't think that brings any value to anyone. I think, put it this way, somebody who was to take some content and then do no other work than just slap a new thumbnail on the top of it or something like that, slap a new cover on. I mean, I don't know, that just seems so cheap. It seems like you're really kind of, you're kind of making light of your audience. You're taking a lot of people who are invested in your content for granted by just regurgitating the same content over and over with just superficial changes on the top. I mean, who does a thing like that? I don't know. Doesn't seem right to me. At any rate, I think that variant covers, to me, some, modest use, fine. This kind of overuse that we have today, I think it's one of those things that actually drives harm in the comic industry, and I think it's a negative. And I wish they wouldn't do it. Certainly not as much as they do. I think it's sending all the wrong messages. But what do you think? Are you a big variant cover fan? Do you think I'm all wrong? Go ahead and let me know, in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. I hope you have a good sense of humor, and thanks for listening.